So
why don't you?
Well, do you want to go through the questions? Have you got the questions in front of you?
Sure, I can
I'll
do
email them
that.
again.
So, let me bring it up. Okay.
The first question was about protein. And if I'm going back to the gym and lifting weights regularly and working out, how do I get the protein in that I need to grow and retain muscle?
Okay, so the key thing is to focus on making sure that you have protein at every single meal. So where you start with your protein is obviously first thing in the morning for breakfast. So I would recommend that, you know, at breakfast, if you can tolerate eggs, try and have some eggs. If you're not one who loves eggs, then maybe try some Chobani yogurt or a really high protein yogurt. Alternatively, choose a cereal that's higher protein and put some milk with it, and try and choose a higher protein milk.
Now can I hear you? No.
And so that's breakfast. And then for snacks, I'd be inclined to try and include protein in your snacks as well. So whether you're having a small piece of cheese, or once again, you might be having something else, dairy, some yogurt, or if you're a coffee drinker, maybe you're having a latte and getting your milk and protein that way. So even a coffee can have around 10 grams of protein. When it gets to lunch, I guess that's pretty simple.
I can't hear Kate.
People can generally have quite a few.
I can't do anything, and I'm on live. No, but you're on Facebook.
I'm going to put Jacqui.
She's answering questions.
Okay.
And they can hear you.
I'll ask Jacqui to mute, and I'll keep going.
What's your audio like?
And
it's all fixed. It's all as it normally is.
Maybe she can't see the chat. Anyway, so talking about lunch, try and make sure that you get at least, you know, a very small portion of protein. But the key way to get it in once you're going back to the gym is to have small amounts all throughout the day at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. A good alternative for a snack to a nice, easy one to digest is a homemade protein ball, or something that you've put the protein powder in it to get it extra high in protein without all the carbs. Some almond meal, and maybe using some real cacao powder as well. A little bit of dates to blend it, and that's a really good high energy, high protein snack as well. And that nice small portion, so easy to digest. When it comes to dinner, once again, make sure you have a protein serve in your dinner, and that might be as simple as including mincemeat if you're not tolerating sort of steaks and chewy meats. And I find a lot of people really struggle with chicken breast as well, so it can be quite dry. But chicken thigh seems to be well tolerated, and particularly if it's in a sauce. So you might be making some sort of healthy satay, and even the satay itself is quite high in protein. Alternatively, use a higher protein grain. So rather than just using your standard rice and pasta, you could look at using something like a barley max or a quinoa, or even freekeh, or something that's just got a little bit more protein, and just small portions at each meal. And then once again, for dessert, one of my favorite high protein desserts is actually getting a bit of frozen fruit, whether it's frozen berries, frozen mango, putting it in a blender with a couple of tablespoons of a vanilla protein powder. And when it blends up, it actually whips, got to put a couple of tablespoons of yogurt in there as well. It whips into like a youre, like a really fluffy dessert, chilled dessert. And it's a really high protein way to get a good snack. It's really tasty. It's sweet, and obviously the lactose in the yogurt adds to the sweetness of the fruit. And you feel like you're honestly having a really good treat. Next question. Okay, you're muted now.
I'm now good.
Okay, we're on.
Thank you. Thank you. The second question is Patty Harwood's asking about, she hasn't stuck strictly to the stages of eating since surgery. Mm-hmm. What, if any, damage could I have done? I've had a sleeve and a minimizer ring.
Oh, look, that is so individual, to be honest. And that is something that you can't give generic advice for something like that. Ideally, you might need an X-ray or something like that to really see what's going on there. You know, everyone's so individual. It depends on how well you heal and all of those sorts of things as well. So that's a pretty tricky one to be able to answer. And it is a more surgical question rather than nutrition question as well.
Okay, thank you. And Sandy Wade wants to know about Optifast. Is 2 Optifast shakes plus protein powder in something else enough nutrition? I'm 6 days post-op. And you've found the right girl to ask.
Well, do you want my advice or my opinion?
Well, blend. You can use your blending skills and give us both.
In terms of protein, yes, because protein at the end of the day is what we call a macronutrient. So it's a source of calories, and those calories go towards building cells in your body. But our bodies need a huge array of vitamins and minerals, and even more importantly, they need living foods. They need the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals, the colourful things that come in your fruit and veggies. So I would at least encourage you to blend your Optifast with a bit of fruit or something like that to get some freshness and some real, you know, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals in there as well, and not just sticking to powder. And particularly because for our gut microbiome, so forgive me for anyone who knows exactly what that is, but our gut microbiome is our host of all, or we host all of these different good and bad bacteria in our whole gastrointestinal system, all over our body actually. And these bacteria outnumber our human cells 10 to 1. So when we're eating, what we're actually trying to do is feed these bacterial cells and hopefully feed the good ones, so it protects us against chronic health diseases and pathogens, damage to the bowel. Now, their favourite food is dietary fibre, and you can only get that dietary fibre really in the right forms, or the best source of it is your fruit and veggies plus your legumes, and obviously in those 6 days post-surgery, you're definitely not having a lot of the grains and things like that, but you can be pureeing up your fruit, pureeing up your veggies, or like I said earlier, if you want to stick to the Optifast, just make sure you're blending something fresh in there as well, ideally.
That's a good idea, actually, to just, you know, add those things to it. And 6 days post-op, just a few shakes a day, you're not going to blow your calories out either. So it's, actually really good advice to bring in those, you know, health-giving antioxidants and fibre and that sort of stuff. So thank you. That's great. And now we've got quite a few questions this week, which is great. So Carmen, Patty Harwood, we've got on her. So then we've got Sandy Wade. Can drinking too fast hurt your new sleeve?
Oh, once again, I guess that's a little bit more of a surgical question, because everyone's anatomy, believe it or not, is completely different. Now, I've gone in and watched surgery many times and it all looks the same to me. But apparently, according to the surgeon, it's all completely different. And he does try to point these things out and show me how it's unique. So taking that advice on, you can't give individualized advice without the surgeon actually commenting on the structure of your anatomy and how your anatomy will deal with it. And to be honest, the human body is an amazing thing, and hence why we can cut pieces out and it all heals back up together and everything else again. So we do have this unique ability for our bodies to heal, even if there is damage. But it's very important, I guess, that's where you need your vitamins and minerals and a really good diet to make sure your body can heal the way it needs to heal. So sorry, I'm not answering that question directly, but
it's a hard one. Some of them are a bit technical. Yeah.
So
that's now I've got the next one from Shona. I've now had Roux-en-Y bypass on the 29th of July. Previously had a sleeve, then a mini bypass. She's been a busy lady. I began well, only could eat small amounts, and now I can eat approximately 1.5 cups at a sitting. But the problem is...
Good night, baby.
We've all gotten to know each other through this COVID period. I think there's, it's actually quite a nice thing. And now I can eat approximately 1.5 cups at a sitting, but I'm hungry about an hour after. I'm always hungry except after the gym. So I'm not eating crap food, but I'm hungry. I drink heaps of water. I just don't know what's up with that.
That's a really interesting thought, because I guess the hunger can be cues actually from the body and hormonal or chemical inputs, or it could be more psychological hunger as well. So the first bit of advice when I kiss my second daughter, good night, good night.
Good night.
Good night, off you go to bed. Is to make sure that you're actually getting enough fluids in, because our bodies often actually mistake thirst for hunger. And if we are thirsty, then we will definitely think we're hungry. And I guess if we think back to our ancestors, they didn't necessarily just have to drink water because they're eating all plant-based food. So the food content was high in water as well. So if you're someone who's not good at telling the difference between your hunger and your thirst, certainly try and drink more water, or certainly make sure you're meeting your fluid requirements. In terms of getting hungry that often, maybe you've actually got a really good gastric emptying rate, or that the gastrointestinal tract is pushing food through the system quickly. So you could slow that down if you wanted to, and you could try small amounts of psyllium husk, like half a teaspoon mixed into your meal or a smoothie or whatever it is that you're eating as well. That'll help to slow down the gastric emptying rate. And you can build that up to have a little bit more. I'm just very cautious after surgery. You don't want to be swelling up the food content too much in the gut. But that will give a nice easy passage, but help the food stay there longer and increase satiety as well. And perhaps making sure that you're not drinking around mealtime. So it's always suggested to at least wait 15 to 30 minutes after having a drink before you eat, and then after eating before you have a drink as well. So I would encourage you to hydrate really well outside of your 3 distinct meal times, or if you're having snacks, really outside of that, because the fluid content itself could be pushing the food a little bit quicker through the tract. So it'd be great to separate that out and see if you stay fuller. And fibrous foods. So fiber does slow down the gastrointestinal tract, as does fat. So healthy fat. So having avocado, if you were to have, say, a corn cake with avocado on it or something like that to get the healthy fat, or a nut butter or something like that, because those fatty foods definitely stay in the stomach a lot longer too. But being mindful of the calories, but then again, it depends on what else you're eating over the day, and ultimately, I guess, how your weight loss is going to.
Thank you. I think that's also something to talk about, is the healthy fats. I think there's a real steering away from any fat, and that will also, like you're saying, is keep that tummy feeling a bit fuller for longer. I think it's important to remember that it does have its place and it's not the demon. Thank you. So Rebecca's got a question, Rebecca Tranter, just throwing this out there. I don't know if anyone else has gone through this, but I'm a little bit confused and concerned. I had my sleeve in November. I've lost 50 kilos, but the thing I wanted to throw out there is that most days are good. I can eat my 5 small meals a day. Other days I struggle to eat anything, and some days I eat bigger serves because I'm always hungry. I'm not sure why this is happening.
So is that question really just about the variation, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I must say, people eat for all different reasons. So yes, there's going to be hunger and fullness cues, but there's going to be psychological cues there too. There's going to be stress hormones. And I guess if you kept a really detailed food diary and keep a bit of a mood and activity journal in the same place, you might actually start to see if there's patterns with your mood, with stress, different times of the month, obviously, as well for females. I think having a variation in hunger is very normal, regardless of whether you've had surgery or not. So some days you may not be hungry and other days you may be ravenous, and that's normal too. It doesn't mean that you have to eat the same amount every single day, particularly if your activity levels change, then you should change your food volumes. You shouldn't just have the same thing every day out of habit. You really should be adapting your food according to your activity levels on those.
Yeah, I think that comes down to listening, doesn't it? You know, am I hungry? What have I eaten? Whether
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of questions about should I or shouldn't I be hungry, when hunger is certainly a cue, and I think it's detecting what it's actually, the source of that cue is, where it's coming from. But also, what have I done today? Did I sleep well last night? Because that can make you hungry. Is the weather cold? That can make you hungry. So there's all these internal and external fluctuations, and I think we're all coming out of this looking at my 800 calories a day every single day, and it's just, the world is not a perfect place like that, I don't think. So yeah, understanding that it will ebb and flow, and then if you've done a lot of exercise, then yes, you might need some more food, but what is that food? Is it more protein? Do I need more carbohydrate? That sort of thing to fuel what the body needs.
You made a really interesting point about sleep, and I actually saw a study that looked at the amount of sleep that we get per night, and then people that have less than the recommended, I think the number was 7 hours, and obviously if they had less and less, it got worse. But there was a point there, if there was less than maybe 6 hours sleep a night, people on average ate over 300 calories extra per day.
Incredible.
Yeah, so there was a direct link there, which was really interesting. Yeah, and I must know, I mean, we rely on caffeine and things like that to help, but by the end of the day, if the body's exhausted, the caffeine's not going to help anymore. We start getting cravings and actually seeking sweet foods or savoury foods, whatever that kind of, when you give into a craving, whatever that food is for you, and it tends to be a carbohydrate of some description, whether it's sweet or savoury.
And I've also read about sleep deprivation or lack of sleep and the need for balancing serotonin, and carbohydrates also do that. So if you haven't had a great sleep, or you've got sleep apnea and your sleep is interrupted, the cravings are based around creating more serotonin, which is also all about the melatonin pathway, which helps you sleep. So it's kind of really the body's trying to regulate mood and hormones through food in that case as well. So it's where, yes, we always say it, we're complex little creatures, and kind of hard to work it out as a blanket. But yeah, I think the whole idea of eating the same amount of calories every day, regardless of what's happening, is going to be frustrating at the end of the day. So the next one's Danielle. 18 months out, I've rapidly regained 10 kg. Back in touch with my surgeon, who's asked me to just have 3 meals a day, plus totally off any binge triggering slider foods and soft drink. I've just started and I feel so hungry. Is there any advice for this? And do you eat when you're hungry, or will the hunger fade?
So straight away, my brain goes to, what are those 3 meals that you're eating? Because if you're eating 3 really well-balanced meals, the hunger should fade away. So it sounds like the balance of carbs to protein and healthy fat in those meals perhaps isn't optimized to, well, like we talked about, keep the food in the stomach long enough. So making sure there's enough fiber and some healthy fats. And secondly, the protein as well, because that helps with satiety, and some carbohydrate also, because a lot of the time, if we're completely cutting out the carbohydrates, we can have these big drops in our blood sugar levels if we're not used to a low carb diet. So a lot of people take a low carb approach without getting their body ready for it, and they'll have these big ups and downs whenever they have carbohydrates. So my advice there is always to try and have 1 to 2 tablespoons of a whole grain carbohydrate at each meal, and I find that keeps people away from grazing and snack foods, because they feel like they actually got to have a little bit of rice or pasta or quinoa or whatever carb it is they're choosing. and then that right amount of protein and the healthy fats. And often a lot of people do miss the healthy fats in their diet and they feel unsatisfied, and fats have that very satisfying effect. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice. And it is, I think, looking at the protein content of each meal and making sure that goes in first. And that's a real key to turning around that hunger, but also to feeling that satisfaction as well. So, yeah, it's a constant theme. I think we talk every week about protein a lot.
And look, yeah, the protein is the number one thing when you're restricted with your volumes. And I should preface with fat as well. You don't need much. So I think a lot of people think, oh, I need more fats in their diet, and then they go and eat half a cup of nuts. Well, in actual fact, half a cup of nuts is about 1,000 calories, which is about a 20-kilometre walk. So if we're talking about nuts, we're talking about your 20 to 30 grams, which is, it is definitely not a small handful. It is a small amount of nuts, because
and you have to measure those.
Yeah, people's handfuls vary, and I must say, a lot of the time when I see handfuls, they're, you know, we're talking half a cup handfuls, which is 500 calories, and then you're just not going to get your protein in for the day as well. And it can upset your stomach if you're not used to having that fat. And even with olive oil, like a quarter of a cup of olive oil is about 500 calories too. So small amounts of olive oil, use a teaspoon to measure it out and put that with your meals rather than tablespoons.
Yes, and they're very good for you too. But yeah, I've got big hands when it comes to eating nuts.
So do I. And look, I find something that works really well is when we buy the nuts, portion control them into little bags, whereas if you leave them in the big container, it's too easy to go in and, absolutely.
And don't eat nuts in the car.
Yeah.
So thank you. That's all the questions we have today. I'll announce our winners later on, but also the main reason I had Kate on tonight was to talk about what I've been up to. You're commenting on the glow in my cheeks. And so I started Kate's Be Rapid program last Tuesday afternoon after the mailman came and dropped these big boxes on our doorstep. And so can you tell us about the Be Rapid program? You can do more for it than I can.
Yeah, so Jeffrey Draper, who's a weight loss surgeon or bariatric surgeon, and I'm a dietitian, exercise physiologist and diabetes educator. We'd worked together for a decade seeing patients for bariatric surgery. And what we were finding is a lot of the time people were having successful weight loss during surgery, but then around 2 years after surgery, they were starting to slowly regain weight. And it was such a battle for them to try and keep the weight off at that point, or find a diet meaning an eating plan or what to eat that would actually satisfy their hunger but not make them regain weight. And we thought a lot of the time people were going back to Optifast or a bar or shake diet of some description, and it's not really nurturing their gut microbiome. And there are studies out there to show that when you're at a particular weight, you have a particular set of gut bacteria. And if you're at a higher weight, you actually have different bacteria. And some of these bacteria actually extract more calories from food than someone who isn't overweight. So there's a big disadvantage there. So what we really thought the goal with people before they go on to have their surgery, rather than going on to a bars and shakes diet in isolation, they could either mix it up with real food in the form of meals and some shakes if they wanted to, or have a complete very low calorie diet just from whole foods. And that's what we created. So our Be Rapid program is breakfast, lunch, dinner and snacks, completely prepared. So no cooking, just heating the meals up. We've got about 70 different products to choose from. Lots and lots of different options to suit people's different tastes, I guess, at breakfast, lunch, dinner and snacks. And each program, so the program has around that 820 to 920 calories a day. and it depends obviously on which meals you're picking, but each of the meals are portion controlled, calorie controlled, carb controlled, and contain a minimum of 20 grams of protein in these very small meals. If they're a regular meal, and if they're vegetarian, they're somewhere between 15 to 20, because we do cap the carbs, and we cap the carbs at around 15 grams a meal if it has meat, and around 20 grams a meal, 20 grams per meal if it's vegetarian. And the reason for that is to induce that ketosis, so that body fat burning effect. So people will lose around 5 kilos in 2 weeks, but they're doing it through whole foods. And yeah, it's just empowering for them to be able to read the label, replicate the meal, even keep the containers and cook the same sort of meal and freeze it themselves and stick it away. And
I think that's a good point, is it's a really nice eyeball. And it's been for me to see how much food I really need. It's been an awakening. Like I pick up my brekkie, I've picked up my brekkie. I'm like, there's my breakfast. And then that's kind of all I need. And
wow.
I'm not feeling starving. I'm not suffering. I'm not tired. And I'm actually more mentally alert. And I just feel my mood is quite even. My anxiety's better. I just feel like I've, really, it's actually been a really nice reset. And I think this year's the year that we've all kind of needed to hit that button once or twice. So I'm enjoying the snacks. I've got the chocolate protein balls in the snack department and the dim, and they're pretty good. And I took your advice and put them in the freezer, so nobody found those. And the dim sims have been wonderful too. So all of the meals, the same thing. I like to eat a high protein diet, so it suits me in that way. It's not a huge change. If I'm eating something that I haven't prepared, I'm always looking for what the meat content is, because a lot of the time when you buy those meals from elsewhere, they're upside down and they end up being too carby and not enough meat. And so then you just, you end up hungry again, or you're just not getting what you need. So I'm enjoying that, and it's all beautifully flavored and really well cooked, and there's pulled beef that just falls apart. And I've actually really, it's a really nice way to eat. I think it's very helpful and really eye-opening to see what's tasty and how to make things tasty without adding, mayonnaise and different salts and sauces and that sort of stuff, but using more spices and a bit of chili or something like that. I've really quite enjoyed, and it's taken me into different places. Like I want to go back to yoga, you know what I mean? It's actually been something that's put me back on the straight and narrow. Wow. And I haven't even finished a week yet. So
that's amazing. And I thought that, because I know you exercise quite a lot as well, and I thought, I wonder how you're going to go in that first week with hunger. But that's amazing to hear that you've been able to stick to it. So it's really good. And look, the egg bites, I'm not sure if you'd ordered them.
I didn't get those.
You get 2 per serve, and I find they're really, really satisfying. Mind you, though, if my children find them, they get the whole 14 pack, put it in the microwave, and they sit outside and have a picnic with them. I'm like, are they my egg bites? I find them really good because I like them cold as well. They're just like a little frittata, and it's something as a snack, having a couple of egg bites as you're on your way somewhere, and something nutritious as well. It's quite good. And
I think that's also great, is that it is a 14-day program, and it's breakfast, lunch and dinner. So it's very structured, which is great. And it also helps me to think that later on I can pick and choose from your site the things that I want. So if I know that lunch is a busy time and I don't eat, how I would really like to, it would be great to have some options in the freezer just for those, even just a busy week, or just to help keep making those correct choices. And I think when we're looking at maintaining, yes, we want rapid reset and that sort of thing, but I think when you're looking at a lifestyle, you need to set yourself up with these foolproof things that are going to support you. And I see your, single purchases, and buy a month of lunches or buy a couple of weeks of snacks. And I love it that you don't have to buy the whole thing every single time. And that there's such a variety. So and I know the other thing I do is I know that I can trust it. So if I bought protein bars or protein balls from the supermarket, they've got protein ball written all over it, but we know that a lot of it's marketing. So at least I know that all the guesswork's taken out of these BeFit food products, and I can rely on that to be exactly what I'm looking for. So, and you've taken all the hard work out of it.
Oh, thank you, Jacqui. And look, what you said for convenience, yes, people can use them pre-surgically for their rapid weight loss. They can use them then rest of life just as top-ups. And particularly if people, when we were hearing these questions about people feeling unsatisfied from their meals, or if they're struggling at different phases in the surgery, our soups are so high protein, but they're so tasty and satisfying that you feel like you've had a really substantial meal, but you don't walk away feeling uncomfortable. And I find they're such a good lunch too, because if you're at work or you're on the go, then you're not feeling uncomfortable after that meal, but you will feel very satisfied for the next few hours. It won't just empty out of the stomach and leave you feeling hungry like a lot of other soups would. So it's still got that 20 grams of protein as well.
And I think that's great because I had the Italian meatball soup for lunch today. They're pretty yummy. But you're right. It actually feels like a substantial meal because it has that protein, whereas soup with, veggies in the broth and a little bit of meat, it's half an hour later and I'm hungry again. So
yeah. I never used to think soup was a meal. I used to laugh when I'd go to someone else's house and I go, we're having soup for dinner, and I'm like, that's an entree.
And what else?
So the biggest complaint we used to get about our soups, and we don't anymore, but when we first launched the company, was, well, it's not really a soup. It's a bit too filling and it's a bit thick to be soup. And I'm like, well, you can call it a casserole or a stew, whatever you want to do, but it's going to work.
A blend between a soup and a casserole. Yeah. But I was pretty excited when I found about 6 meatballs in my soup today. That was pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
So I find it's really a supportive, and I think, particularly for before or after surgery. So you could replace the Opti stage with your program. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Opti stage can be completely changed out for BeFit food. That's why we created it, for people that wanted to do it with real food. And look, particularly for people that perhaps have lost the trust in food as being a weight loss solution as well, because a lot of people have battled with food and battled with their weight, and they just think that another diet won't work. And they're happy to go on bars or shakes, but they've given up on using whole food for that. And I think once you can show someone that you can do it with whole food, that sense of empowerment and achievement, even if they're still going through with surgery. But we have had people that have decided, I'm just going to stick to this a little bit longer and, see if I can do without the surgery. So, but I guess for most people, they're going to follow it up with the surgery, and then hopefully those good behaviours that they've learned pre-surgically, they go back to after surgery as well.
And in the post-op stage, how do you support that with a whole food regime straight after and into the soft food stage?
We would get them to use the soups and puree them up, and then just thin them down with a little bit of stock or hot water to the consistency that they can tolerate.
Yeah, perfect.
So and then there's the birches and the chia pots and other really soft things that they can have in small amounts. So
I had the chocolate chia pudding pot for brekkie yesterday, and that's a bit like a treat. It's really quite chocolatey, and it's not a huge portion, but it's certainly satisfying. And looking at the ingredients, it's also nice to know really there's amaranth in there and chia seeds and cacao and all the things that I usually like to put in, but I'm too lazy lately to blend it all up myself. So all good. Yeah, and I think that's it, is I either do that myself or I don't do it. I don't go buying those sorts of things because I don't trust what's actually in it, whereas you can see that your labels don't lie, and like I said, it's all been very closely mapped out to suit the needs of rapid weight loss patients and that
We
sort of
do
thing.
have, which you may not have seen on the site too, they're a bit tricky on the website to find. We actually have protein cheesecakes. So we've got a lemon cheesecake and a chocolate cheesecake, and they're so good. If people are looking for a dessert or any time of day, they're completely guilt-free. They've got over 10 grams of protein. They're gluten-free, and they're around 120 calories, 120, 130 calories. So you actually feel like you're having something really decadent, but you're getting all of the protein that you actually need as well. And just a little secret, we're about to launch, and I think it'll be around October the 12th, a double top chopped chip protein muffin. And I've got them in my freezer at the moment. I've been sampling them.
Samples. You're sharing the samples or keeping the samples to yourself?
I told the team about them on our Zoom meeting this morning, and they were all like, send them out. We want them. So the team's known, and I heated one up, and the chocolate melts everywhere. And they're completely sugar-free. They're 20 grams of protein.
Wow.
They've got lupin in them. They've got all the good gluten-free whole grains. I'm surprised they worked. Let's just say that much. They're really good. They've got the egg whites in there. So it's about the equivalent of, I think, 4 or 5 egg whites for protein.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And so as an example, it's a product like this one, how long in its, evolution is it before it appears in my box on my front doorstep?
At the very least, we probably go through 3 months of developing a product at the least. So nothing works the first time when you're trying to reduce the carbs, increase the protein, have no sugar in it whatsoever, and still make it edible. And the best test is I often will get my family to try it. If they don't like it, I'm like, they're too honest. They're going to let me know. They take a bite. Nah. I'm like,
next.
So
back
close.
to the chocolate protein ball we go.
Yeah.
And so tell me, you've put together a bit of a deal for our members. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I think I'm very passionate about supporting the bariatric community because it is the only reason we started this company. So Jeff and I really started for our bariatric patients, and we were trying to problem solve for them because they would come to us and say, well, can I have this meal? And they bring in all these examples and this product and this one. And I felt terribly guilty, always going, it's not quite right. And they're like, well, just tell me what I can have. I'm like, well, it doesn't really exist unless you make it yourself. Yeah. I go, well, I just don't have the time to make it myself. So what is there? And I think that frustration led us to develop the product because we didn't want people's backup plan to always be Optifast or a bar or shake. And I'm not saying Optifast has its place, absolutely, and so do bars and shakes, but not for the rest of life diet. You shouldn't have to substitute food for powder. You just shouldn't have to. You should be able to eat real foods. And so the offer, have you got it in front of you? Because I know my marketing team
sent it to me. So the offer and the code that we will, I'll post it in the group, and it's a lifetime deal. So each time you buy from BeFit Food, you enter in our special code from the BN multi-site and you receive a discount. And I believe it is 10% off. So I will post all of that in the group.
I've got a feeling it's 5%.
Is it 5%?
Yeah, 5% and a voucher as well.
Good stuff.
There's a voucher. Sorry, I'm very unorganized at that sort of thing. I just
I'm finding it. You might be right.
Yeah, I know there's definitely a starter voucher too, and that's really because a lot of time it takes people to trust a brand to actually just try it. So we like to really help people to get past that.
Here it is. I've got the deal. It's 20% off your first order.
$20 off your first order.
$20 off your first order at BeFit Food using a special code that we'll put in the group at the checkout. And then you get an ongoing 5% discount by joining the BeFit Foodies Facebook group. There's the deal. So we'll also post the link to the group on our site as well under the video once we finish up. So it's a significant saving. And I can't speak highly enough about it. I think it'll be a feature in our tucked away, hidden in my freezer for times to come. And thank you. We will be launching our podcast as well in the next little while. I did a full session with Kate all about whole food nutrition and the importance of making that a feature of your diet for healthy living after bariatric surgery. So we'll wrap up tonight's live session. It's been a mixing pot of technological specialness. I think my son had the day off today and he was in here in my office and he's turned the volume down on the microphone and on the computer.
There you go.
So our little cherubs, they're very special. And so thank you again for joining us. And we also post this video on the Australian Weight Loss Surgery podcast website every Thursday, and it has the transcription as well, so that the subtitles, so that anyone who's hearing impaired or likes to read a lot can revisit it and also find Kate's direct contacts and websites and that sort of thing as well. So, and I hear that, Melbourne's opening up a little, which is fantastic news as well.
The playground's opened up. That's as far as it's gone. So you're still not allowed to meet another family. You're not allowed out of your 5 kilometre radius. Oh, and our curfew has lifted from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So
what are you going to do?
Still not free. But we can. The playground is open for the children, so we did go and enjoy a swing today.
Yeah. And is the weather lovely?
It's Melbourne.
Yeah, I heard it was pretty lovely down there today.
It wasn't too bad. I can't complain. It's much better than the miserable winter we had. So it was, it was definitely, the sun was out, and that's nice. So definitely got the, the big warm vest on. But
put your face in the sun. And so you guys distribute your foods too into every state in Australia except for Northern Territory?
Yeah, we do. So we're just launching Tasmania this month as well. So we're certainly Queensland, New South Wales, Vic, South Australia, ACT, and now Tasmania as well, and WA. So just not the Northern Territory just yet. But we'll see.
They'll have to wait for the goodness. Excellent. Thanks again, Kate Save from Be Fit Food.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful week. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.